Good morning. I'm Harpreet Kaur, Business and Human Rights Portfolio Manager at UNDP's Asia Pacific Regional Center, and also your host for the forum. The 7th UN Responsible Business and Human Rights Forum, themed Anchoring Progress and Strengthening Regional Leadership on Human Rights Through Crisis. And with me, I have my co-host.
Good morning. I'm Rinita Naik with the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, Regional Office here in Bangkok.
Thank you for joining us. The 8 co-organizing UN agencies are proud to welcome you all to this forum. This forum indeed is a collective endeavor shaped by UNDP, OHCHR, ILO, IOM, UNICEF, UN Women, UNEP, and the UN Working Group on Business and Human Rights. And to set the stage, we would like to begin with a short welcome video from all of our co-organizers. So if I could request our technology team here to please play the video.
Welcome to the 2025 United Nations Responsible Business and Human Rights Forum. As co-organizer, we are proud to convene this forum to take stock of progress, highlight regional and national leadership, and strengthen efforts to ensure that business and human rights are anchored in practice and deliver concrete outcomes for people across Asia and the Pacific.
In this time of overlapping crisis, human rights are being challenged. Yet, across the region, our commitment remains clear. Human rights must be at the heart of all business-related action for everyone, everywhere. This forum is a chance to renew that commitment and ensure it translates into concrete action where people are protected and accountability is upheld.
Too often, children and young people are left out of business and policy decisions, missing the chance to shape their future. Yet they are already influencing ideas on accountability, technology, and the future of work. It's time to put their voices at the heart of the discussion.
From factory floors to boardrooms, women are driving change. Their leadership is not only shaping inclusive policies, but advancing progress across critical areas, from climate justice and humanitarian response to the building of inclusive and stronger economies. Guided by the frameworks like the Women's Empowerment Principles, businesses are stepping up, proving that embedding gender equality at the core of its business is both possible and powerful.
Workers are the backbone of our economies, but many still face informality, unsafe conditions, low wages, and limited voice and influence at work. This forum is a space to confront those realities and advance new models of cooperation among governments, employers, trade unions, and civil society that show how real economic and social progress can be made when rights and business go hand in hand.
The rights of migrants are not separate from the business and human rights agenda. They are central to it. The migrants are helping drive the economy and fill critical labor gaps to meet the market demands. We are seeing growing momentum for fair recruitment, better protections, and stronger corporations to uphold rights of migrants across borders. We must build on this progress to ensure that no one is left behind.
Climate and environmental crises are reshaping economies, displacing communities, and changing how businesses operate. Yet within these challenges lie opportunity to build systems that are sustainable, fair, and inclusive. Asia and Pacific is uniquely positioned to lead, demonstrating that business responsibility, environmental stewardship, and human rights progress are deeply interconnected.
Regional leadership isn't just about innovation, it's about responsibility. So at this year's forum, let us turn responsible business practices into the norm, confront gaps in protection, and champion leadership that fosters corporate accountability and places rights holders where they belong, at the heart of business and human rights.
This forum brings us together to lead, not only in words,
but in the actions that matter for people and the planet, to anchor progress in real accountability,
to strengthen leadership for just and inclusive transition across environmental, economic, and technological change,
to ensure every child, every worker, every migrant is protected and included,
to reaffirm that justice is not a privilege, but a human right,
and that business, when done responsibly, can be part of the solution.
This forum must center the voices of those most affected.
To advance solutions that uphold rights, close protection gaps, and reflect the leadership already emerging across Asia and the Pacific. Let's not just respond to crisis.
Let's lead through it.
Let's anchor progress in the realities of our region.
Let's act together
to deliver change
that just,
Inclusive,
and lasting.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This is indeed a reminder that the forum truly embodies the spirit of a shared commitment to put human rights at the center for business practices in our region. And I guess the room full today is a testament to that. Over 2,000 people registered for the forum this year from more than 90 countries to join 90 sessions organized over 4 days by the co-organizers, but also our amazing 150 plus partners across the world, covering some of the most pressing issues of our time, from labor to gender, migration, technology, environment, energy, policy and regulation, finance, access to remedy, and much, much more. So you will hear all of these conversations over the next 4 days. Importantly, close to 40% of these sessions are led by civil society, ensuring that rights holders' perspectives remain at the center of all of our conversations. But what makes this forum special? It isn't the numbers. It really is the community that we're building together here. I guess we noticed, and the ideas, the energy yesterday, and I guess also just the honesty that everybody brings to this forum year after year. This year, we begin our preparations with consultations because we wanted to hear what people wanted from this forum, our stakeholders, our partners, rights holders, our collaborators. And you told us what mattered the most. More practical case studies, lived experiences, new voices at the table, shorter and more focused sessions, alongside hands-on workshop and expert panels, and sub-thematic tracks on the issues that matter most to you, that matters most to Asia right now. These insights and feedback, also received from last year, really challenged us. I think it was just really a challenge for all of us to make this year's program more dynamic, more diverse, but also more responsive to the calls that we heard. We hope that you will find these conversations both engaging and useful. We're also fortunate to have strong government partners who continue to champion this agenda. And to open the forum, we will begin with a video message from Ms. Ayman Saingai, Director General, Department of Rights and Liberty Protection, Ministry of Justice, Government of Thailand, to share their perspective and commitment to advancing responsible business and human rights in the region. Can we please play the video? Thank you.
เรียนคุณแอนนามาเรียโอชอปหัวหน้าฝ่ายความร่วมมือเพื่อการพัฒนาภูมิภาคเอเชียและแปซิฟิกสถานเอกอัครราชทูตสวีเดนประจำประเทศไทยคุณแอนดรูว์ อีแกนเอกอัครราชทูตที่ปรึกษาและรองหัวหน้าคณะผู้แทนสถานเอกอัครราชทูตออสเตรเลียคุณซาร่า เลโซอายิอุปทูตรักษาการรองหัวหน้าคณะผู้แทนสหภาพยุโรปประจำประเทศไทยดร.พิชามน เอี่ยวพานทองประธานคณะทำงานสหประชาชาติว่าด้วยธุรกิจกับสิทธิมนุษยชนท่านผู้แทนหน่วยงานองค์การสหประชาชาติที่ร่วมจัดงานในครั้งนี้ท่านวิทยากรและแขกผู้มีเกียรติทุกท่านในนามของรัฐบาลไทยและในฐานะประเทศเจ้าภาพดิฉันรู้สึกยินดีและเป็นเกียรติเป็นอย่างยิ่งที่ได้มาร่วมกล่าวต้อนรับทุกท่านในการประชุมสหประชาชาติว่าด้วยธุรกิจและสิทธิมนุษยชนที่มีความรับผิดชอบครั้งที่ 7ซึ่งจัดขึ้นภายใต้ธีมยึดมั่นความก้าวหน้าและเสริมสร้างความเป็นผู้นำระดับภูมิภาคด้านสิทธิมนุษยชนท่ามกลางวิกฤตและต้องขอบคุณทุกหน่วยงานที่ร่วมการจัดงานในครั้งนี้ขึ้นทุกท่านคะ อย่างที่ทุกท่านทราบกันดีว่าในปัจจุบันโลกต้องเผชิญกับความท้าทายไม่ว่าจะเป็นวิกฤตเศรษฐกิจโลกความเปลี่ยนแปลงทางสภาพภูมิอากาศและสิ่งแวดล้อมการเปลี่ยนผ่านด้านเทคโนโลยีการแพร่ระบาดของโรคและความเหลื่อมล้ำที่ยังดำรงอยู่วิกฤตเหล่านี้ได้ทดสอบศักยภาพและความเข้มแข็งทั้งของภาครัฐภาคธุรกิจและภาคประชาสังคมว่าเราจะสามารถรักษาความก้าวหน้าไปพร้อมๆกับการคุ้มครองสิทธิมนุษยชนได้มากน้อยเพียงใดประเทศไทยได้ตระหนักดีว่าการพัฒนาทางเศรษฐกิจและการลงทุนต้องดำเนินการควบคู่กับการเคารพสิทธิมนุษยชนรัฐบาลไทยจึงได้มอบหมายให้กรมคุ้มครองสิทธิและเสรีภาพเป็นหน่วยงานหลักรับผิดชอบการขับเคลื่อนหลักการชี้แนะของสหประชาชาติว่าด้วยธุรกิจกับสิทธิมนุษยชนหรือหลักการ UNGP รวมถึงมีการจัดทำและขับเคลื่อนแผนปฏิบัติการระดับชาติว่าด้วยธุรกิจกับสิทธิมนุษยชนหรือเรียกกันย่อๆว่าแผน NAP เพื่อใช้เป็นเครื่องมือในการป้องกันและเยียวยาผลกระทบด้านสิทธิมนุษยชนที่เกิดจากการทำธุรกิจรวมถึงเพื่อแก้ไขปัญหาที่เกิดขึ้นจากการพัฒนาทางธุรกิจอย่างเป็นระบบโดยปัจจุบันประเทศไทยอยู่ระหว่างการดำเนินการใช้แผน NAP ในระยะที่ 2ซึ่งสะท้อนอย่างต่อเนื่องความมุ่งมั่นและจริงจังของประเทศไทยในการส่งเสริมให้รัฐวิสาหกิจและภาคธุรกิจดำเนินการตามหลักการของ UNGP ทั้งนี้ที่ผ่านมากรมคุ้มครองสิทธิและเสรีภาพได้ร่วมกับภาคส่วนต่างๆทั้งภาครัฐรัฐวิสาหกิจภาคธุรกิจและภาคประชาสังคมรวมถึงองค์การระหว่างประเทศขับเคลื่อนหลักการของ UNGP และแผน NAP อย่างต่อเนื่องทั้งในส่วนกลางส่วนภูมิภาครวมถึงระดับภูมิภาคเอเชียและระดับระหว่างประเทศเพื่อมุ่งหวังให้ประเทศไทยมีพัฒนาการความก้าวหน้าในการดำเนินการทางธุรกิจกับสิทธิมนุษยชนลดปัญหาการละเมิดสิทธิมนุษยชนที่เป็นผลกระทบมาจากการดำเนินการธุรกิจมุ่งสู่การพัฒนาทางด้านเศรษฐกิจอย่างยั่งยืนและสามารถเป็นต้นแบบให้กับประเทศอื่นๆในภูมิภาคนี้ได้ท่านผู้มีเกียรติคะเราต่างตระหนักดีว่าธุรกิจมีบทบาทสำคัญในการที่สร้างการเปลี่ยนแปลงแต่หากจัดความรับผิดชอบก็อาจก่อให้เกิดปัญหาการละเมิดสิทธิมนุษยชนไม่ว่าจะเป็นการบังคับใช้แรงงานการค้ามนุษย์การเลือกปฏิบัติหรือผลกระทบต่อสิ่งแวดล้อมและสังคมได้ดังนั้นรัฐบาลจึงได้ให้ความสำคัญกับการดำเนินกระบวนการการตรวจสอบด้านสิทธิมนุษยชนอย่างรอบด้านหรือที่เราเรียกกันสั้นๆว่า Human Rights Due Diligence โดยที่ผ่านมากรมคุ้มครองสิทธิและเสรีภาพได้เผยแพร่ความรู้เกี่ยวกับการดำเนินการทางด้านธุรกิจที่มีความรับผิดชอบและเคารพสิทธิมนุษยชนและการตรวจสอบสิทธิมนุษยชนอย่างรอบด้านอย่างต่อเนื่องและปัจจุบันอยู่ระหว่างการยกร่างพระราชบัญญัติส่งเสริมการดำเนินธุรกิจด้วยความรับผิดชอบซึ่งกฎหมายฉบับนี้มีความท้าทายมากและถือว่าเป็นก้าวหน้าที่สำคัญในการยกระดับการดำเนินด้านธุรกิจกับสิทธิมนุษยชนของประเทศไทยจากมาตรการสมัครใจสู่มาตรการทางกฎหมายโดยมีเป้าหมายเพื่อส่งเสริมให้ธุรกิจและทุกภาคส่วนดำเนินงานโดยคำนึงถึงสิทธิมนุษยชนสิ่งแวดล้อมและหลักธรรมาภิบาลอย่างยั่งยืนนอกจากนั้นกฎหมายฉบับนี้ยังมีบทบาทที่สำคัญในการเตรียมความพร้อมในด้านธุรกิจของประเทศไทยในการรับมือต่อมาตรการและกติกาสากลที่กำลังพัฒนาเช่นกฎหมายและระเบียบด้านการตรวจสอบสิทธิมนุษยชนในห่วงโซ่อุปทานของสหภาพยุโรปและประเทศคู่ค้าอื่นๆและท้ายที่สุดสิ่งที่จะขาดไปไม่ได้คือกลไกการเยียวยาที่มีประสิทธิภาพเพื่อให้ผู้ได้รับผลกระทบสามารถเข้าถึงความยุติธรรมได้อย่างแท้จริงประเทศไทยในฐานะเจ้าภาพ ของการประชุมครั้งนี้ หวังเป็นอย่างยิ่งว่าการแลกเปลี่ยนความคิดเห็นประสบการณ์ และแนวปฏิบัติที่ดีจากผู้แทนที่หลากหลายจากทุกภาคส่วน จะช่วยให้ภูมิภาคเอเชียแปซิฟิกก้าวสู่ความเป็นผู้นำด้านสิทธิมนุษยชนในห่วงโซ่อุปทานของโลก และยังเป็นเวทีสำคัญในการยืนยันว่าจะมีการพัฒนาทางด้านเศรษฐกิจที่ยั่งยืนต้องตั้งอยู่บนพื้นฐานของการเคารพสิทธิมนุษยชนดิฉันขอใช้โอกาสในเวทีนี้เชิญชวนทุกท่านร่วมกันหาแนวทางในการแก้ไขปัญหาเชิงโครงสร้างเสริมสร้างความร่วมมือใหม่ๆและต่อยอดความก้าวหน้าที่เราได้สร้างไว้เพื่อร่วมกันสร้างภูมิภาคที่เข้มแข็งครอบคลุมและไม่ทิ้งใครไว้ข้างหลังสุดท้ายนี้ในนามของรัฐบาลไทยและกรมคุ้มครองสิทธิและเสรีภาพดิฉันขอให้การประชุมครั้งนี้บรรลุผลสำเร็จตามที่ตั้งไว้และขอให้ทุกท่านได้แลกเปลี่ยนเรียนรู้กันอย่างเต็มที่รวมทั้งหวังว่าทุกท่านจะได้รับประสบการณ์และแรงบันดาลใจใหม่ๆเพื่อนำไปต่อยอดในการทำงานด้านธุรกิจกับสิทธิมนุษยชนให้เข้มแข็งและยั่งยืนต่อไปขอบคุณค่ะ
We thank the government of Thailand for these insights and their continued support. Unfortunately, we were not able to arrange the display or circulation of the message beforehand in time, but we will be putting it up on the website shortly so you can refer to it. Moving on, in keeping with the spirit and practice of this forum, we are privileged to have with us here today distinguished guests representing civil society and business, and I would like to now invite them to provide brief statements on the theme of the forum. May I begin with Mr. Tony Chiran, Deputy Chairperson of the Asia Indigenous Youth Platform and Senior Vice President, Bangladesh Indigenous Youth Forum. Mr. Chiran, the floor is yours.
Pringram, Indigenous greetings, distinguished panelists, and my Indigenous fellows. I'm Tony Chiran, belonging to the Garo Indigenous peoples of Bangladesh from Planland, speaking on behalf of the Asia Indigenous Peoples Caucus, together with my colleagues in this forum. We meet at a moment of reknocking and also crisis conflicts across the world and in our region are shaping how business operates and how states respond. Governments are expected to close gaps in human rights protection and scale up accountability and implement their commitments. However, instead of progress, we witness backsliding, state promoting harmful business practices, while creating voluntary national action plans with little regard for indigenous people's rights as great achievement even a decade after UN guiding principles were adopted. Across Asia and Pacific, indigenous peoples face threat of erasure, and also in Bangladesh, the Santal and other indigenous peoples and communities both in the Planland and also CST region are at risk of losing their lands to an export processing zone and rubber plantation and other development activities, undermining food security, cultural identity, and self-determination. Similar ordeals are reported from India, Indonesia, Malaysia, and also the Philippines. Stories of land dispossession, criminalization, violence and impunity linked to mining, dams and plantations, and so-called development projects. Under the banner of just transition, our lands are being targeted for more mineral extraction and energy projects, while our rights to free, prior, and informed consent is routinely denied. Dams and large-scale mineral extraction are false climate solution, continuing a model that prioritizes profit over people. But indigenous peoples are not only the victims. We are solution bearer. For generations, our knowledge, our governance systems, and stewardship of lands and waters have sustained life. We offer tested and just pathways for biodiversity protection, climate resilience, and a truly sustainable energy transition. What is needed are direct partnership with the indigenous-led institutions, direct financing for our initiatives, and genuine recognitions of indigenous people's rights as rights holder and decision maker. We therefore urge for business respect free, prior, and informed consent and our rights to self-determination. Establish transparent, gender-sensitive grievance mechanism, provide effective remedies, compensation, and restitution. Disclose full environmental and social impacts with gender disaggregated data. Conduct human rights due diligence across the entire value chain. We urge to the states, recognize indigenous people's rights, including customary land rights, and align national laws with UN RIP and CEDAW GR 39. Move beyond voluntary measures, require mandatory human rights due diligence with civil and criminal liability for harm. Ensure effective remedies, legal aid, and protection of indigenous defenders. Reform policies and strengthen enforcement to eliminate rights violations, ensuring coherence across laws and regulations. Integrate indigenous people's rights into national action plans. Respect and protect indigenous data sovereignty and document violations systematically. For donors, investors, and financial institutions, we urge provide direct funding to the indigenous-led initiatives for sustainable development energy solutions, and suspend and withdraw investment where credible evidence shows harm to indigenous peoples, our lands, waters, and defenders. Finally, indigenous peoples continue to advance in leadership roles. We call for partnership built on respect, inclusion, and justice towards a future that is truly sustainable for all. Thank you all. Indigenous peoples long live.
Thank you, Mr. Chiran. May I now call upon Isaiah Emmanuel de la Cruz Sugitan, who is a defender of the rights of children and young people to health and nutrition.
Magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. I am Isaiah Emmanuel de la Cruz Sugitan, an alumni member of the UNICEF East Asia and Pacific Regional Office's Young People's Action Team from the Philippines. I am also a proud human rights activist for almost 7 years, where I have been working with and for grassroots communities in my country. I am also a registered nutritionist dietitian by profession who focuses on children and young people. Back where I come from, the word activist is not welcomed very well. It has found an unfortunate negative connotation in the Philippines without fully understanding why we are activists in the first place. Across the world, many young people risk their lives, exert much effort, and fight with and for the communities they work with, because we believe in what is right. As such, many of us face very precarious situations, which unfortunately tarnishes our own human rights as well. In various parts of the world, my fellow children and young people are facing much violations on their human rights. The children of Gaza are forced to stop school and suffer from hunger and malnutrition due to the ongoing genocide. The children of the Democratic Republic of Congo are dealing with much violence due to the ongoing war, forcing many children to be displaced and deal with much trauma at such a young age. In Asia Pacific, children, however, young people are at the forefront of fighting for social justice. We have seen how Gen Zs use technology to fuel their activism in Nepal, which led to a change in leadership and hold leaders accountable. In my country, the Philippines, youth activists are leading the charge towards walkouts and protests to hold leaders accountable for systemic corruption in flood control projects. In Indonesia, students have mobilized fellow young people and other sectors to protest the unjust subsidies given to government officials while citizens are left to succumb in unlivable wages. Today, we gather to discuss how businesses are affecting children's rights. In my field of work, I see how corporates are targeting us young people through marketing practices that lead us into unhealthy food consumption. As stated in the UNICEF Feeding Profits report published last week, these businesses and their practices violate our own human rights to health and nutrition and to a bright future. At a regional level, my fellow colleagues from the Fix My Food initiative are mobilizing young people across 13 countries to lead the charge for healthier food environments and to stop targeted marketing on unhealthy food towards children and young people. In spaces like these, we constantly call for young people to be here as we want their voices to be heard. Yet, I cannot deny the fact that not many of us are here in this conference to begin with. Systemic barriers have made it more difficult for us to be participating meaningfully in policy and also in policy development practices or when businesses review their practices. And in cases that we are there, do you really listen or care about what we say? Do we really have a voice in the room? May you all take the challenge to let us work together to make society a just, livable, inclusive, and sustainable one. Maraming salamat po, ang mabuhay po ang mga kabataan.
Thank you, Isaiah. Might be interesting for everyone to know that we have over 100 students from 14 universities from across the region attending this forum. Thank you for that. May I now invite Ms. Chung Hyang-suk, who is an activist advocating for the health and rights of people in the semiconductor industry. Floor is yours.
Hello, I am Jung Hyang-suk from South Korea. I am an activist of SHAPS. SHAPS support workers affected by occupational disease in the semiconductor industry. I worked at Samsung Semiconductor factory for 21 years. The factory always smelled of chemicals. Workers had to lift heavy wafer boxes hundreds of times a day. Many colleagues suffered from musculoskeletal disorder and cancer. I never learned how dangerous these chemicals were. After I got sick, I learned the factory used carcinogenic and other very toxic substances. I was proud of my job, but it left me with serious health problems. I had a herniated disc and uterine issues and underwent surgeries. I was diagnosed with a giant cell tumor in my brain and had brain surgery. During the surgery, I lost hearing in my left ear. My face became partially paralyzed. But the government refused to recognize my illnesses as work-related. In South Korea, workers must prove occupational disease, while companies keep the evidence. Workers have the right to know the workplace danger. SHAPS is campaigning for the right to know. And I am preparing a lawsuit for official recognition of my occupational disease. As an activist, I know counsel and document victims. Through this, I have seen too many people fall ill and die across the supply chain. The most hazardous tasks are outsourced. To reduce these risks, leading companies should take responsibility. The situation is similar abroad. In Vietnam, Samsung ran factories without proper wastewater treatment or air pollution controls. It outsourced the hazardous process. We must stop harm from corporate pollution. Workers should not get sick or die. That is why shops call for effective measures for corporate accountability in supply chains. We ask for your solidarity with the workers and communities to live and work in safety and dignity. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And finally, we have Tony Kaur, Director of Corporate Social Responsibility and Human Rights, NXP Semiconductors. Tony, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning. It's great to see so many people here today. And firstly, I'd like to commend Harpreet and the UNDP team, as well as the co-organizers, for the hard work in putting together this forum and bringing together the many and bringing together the many key and important stakeholders and thought leaders to this forum. This forum is indeed a confluence of very important stakeholders that allows for meaningful and impactful engagement, right? And so as a representative from a business entity, I look forward to the opportunity to listen, to learn, and to share practical approaches to the implementation of the UN Guiding Principles, as well as human rights due diligence practices, as we as a business have the responsibility to ensure that we protect and respect the dignity of workers in our own operations, as well as in our supply chain. And also, I'll keep this brief, I also had the opportunity to speak with some youth and youth leaders yesterday in the youth hackathon that's organized by the organizers. And I think it is also very timely to inject youthful energy into the conversation. And so I thank you, and I look forward to the opportunity to engage with many of you in the next few days. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tony. And thank you again, Tony Chiran, Isaiah, Ms. Jung Hyang Suk, for your insights and your courage and your persistence, which is all truly inspiring. May I now hand over to Harpreet for the next section.
Thank you, Renita. And I guess what makes this forum possible isn't just the diversity of voices in this room, some of those we heard just now, but it's also the support behind it. And we are grateful to our development partners who have been key in keeping this agenda alive and growing across Asia and the Pacific. So let me begin by thanking the government of Sweden, whose leadership on business and human rights in this region and world over has been truly pioneering, and who have actually been a driving force and anchor for this forum for the past 7 years. With that, I'm honored to invite Ms. Anna Maria Oltorp, who's the head of Development Cooperation Section for Regional Asia and Pacific at the Swedish Embassy in Bangkok, to share her reflections. Anna Maria, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Distinguished guests, colleagues, and friends, it's a true honor for me to be here this morning, and for Sweden to be a part of the 7th Forum on Asia-Pacific UN Responsible Business and Human Rights. The theme of this year's forum is anchoring progress and strengthening regional leadership on human rights through crisis. This sends a powerful message, both of the significant challenges to democracy and human rights that are prevalent in our world today, but also of the significant progress and leadership for these issues that has emerged in this region over the past decade. Since 2017, Sweden has actively supported the responsible business and human rights agenda through our partnership with UNDP and other partners, recognizing that human rights and prosperity must go hand in hand. Our commitment has never been about choosing between competitiveness and human rights. Rather, it has focused on alignment where responsible trade and inclusive growth complement each other, creating shared benefits for businesses and communities alike. Sweden will continue to champion this approach, but to achieve meaningful impact, we must promote it together. As a relatively small country, Sweden has responded to global challenges, including the war in Ukraine, by adopting bold, forward-thinking and innovative approaches in our international engagement, but also sometimes through the difficult task of prioritization. Sweden works closely with the European Union and our Nordic partners to navigate today's complex global challenges through joint efforts and shared values. And I'm pleased to see my colleague from the EU delegation here today. Development cooperation remains one of Sweden's vital tools in advancing foreign policy objectives, particularly in promoting human rights and inclusive economic growth. But it is not our only tool. Sweden also relies on a range of strategies and policies that supports broader commitments, including those found on trade, innovation, and responsible business practices. Dear colleagues, international development cooperation is facing unprecedented challenges. Last year, for the first time in 6 years, official development assistance declined, falling by 7.1%. And continuing to decrease. This marks a significant shift and highlights the pressure on international assistance at a time when global needs remain urgent and very complex. While this trend is concerning, it also reveals an important reality. Aid alone cannot meet today's challenges. To foster prosperity and protect human rights, we need active engagement from other stakeholders, including the private sector. Responsible and sustainable business practices can complement international aid, mobilizing resources where they are needed the most, and promote growth that benefits people and communities. This is why we are pleased to see partners from the business community present here today. Your engagement is vital. You play an essential role in ensuring that the principles of business and human rights are not only upheld in policy, but implemented on the ground. Even in times of limited resources and political challenges, civil society, human rights defenders, and local communities continue to mobilize, advocate, and engage tirelessly in the pursuit of a better and fairer world. Your unwavering commitment, often in the face of adversity, is inspiring. In the business and human rights space, your voices are not only valuable, they are essential. You bring lived experiences, accountability, and a moral compass to the conversation. Without your participation, our efforts risk losing sight of the very people and principles we aim to protect. The collaboration between rights holder communities and the private sector has to be strengthened, ensuring that responsible business practices are shaped by and created around the voices and needs of people themselves, including indigenous peoples, persons with disabilities, migrants, and human rights defenders, that often bear the cost of growth with limited or no sharing of the benefits. Only then can the private sector drive growth that is grounded in values and contribute to prosperity achieved through inclusion, not at its expense. I would also like to touch on an issue that is often overlooked: power dynamics within and between stakeholders in the business and human rights space. Power imbalances exist not only among governments, companies, and communities, but also within the business sector itself. Large corporations often have the resources to shape the conversation, while micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, which make up the vast majority of business in this region, struggle to be heard and supported. We must ensure that responsible business practices are accessible and achievable for all. This means creating space for communities, civil society, workers, and MSMEs, amplifying their voices and addressing the structural inequalities that hinder meaningful participation. Before I conclude, I would like to thank all participants, both present and online. The diversity of stakeholders gathered here makes this forum an inclusive space where real change can be driven. I also want to extend our appreciation to UNDP, OHCHR, the Working Group on Business and Human Rights, and all other co-organizers. You form a powerful coalition for progress. I know it takes a tremendous effort and coordination to organize an event of this scale. So thank you very much to everyone who's making this forum possible. As we begin our discussions today, let us be ambitious. Let us view business not merely as an engine of economic growth, but as an increasingly relevant force for justice and a driver for shared prosperity. Let us move forward with purpose, with partnership, and with the belief that ethical business practices can be a powerful tool for inclusion, dignity, and progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna Maria. We are also equally fortunate to have the strong partnership of the European Union, a leader in advancing responsible business conduct and human rights globally, and a steadfast supporter of the forum, our work, but also many other partners across Asia. It's my honor to invite Ms. Sara Rezogali, Charge d'Affaires, Deputy Head of Mission, the European Union Delegation to Thailand, to please deliver her opening remarks.
Thank you very much. Distinguished participants, dear colleagues, it's really an honor for me to be here today in such a full and diverse room on behalf of the European Union. First of all, I would like to congratulate UNDP and the other UN agencies involved, ILO, IOM, UN Women, OHCHR, UNICEF, UNEP, and the UN Working Group on Business and Human Rights for organizing the 7th edition of this very important event, and thank you for inviting us to participate. As all our partners know, the European Union has long been at the forefront of promoting human rights within the global business framework. From the very beginning, we have been advancing the principles enshrined in the United Nations Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights, not only by endorsing them, but also by embedding them into our legal, policy, and economic framework. Over the past decade, the EU has advanced a number of measures that contribute to global progress on corporate accountability. This includes legislation placing human rights and environmental sustainability at the heart of responsible business conduct. By doing so, we seek to address the increasing global expectations towards greater accountability for corporate impacts on people and the planet. With regard to the legislation, you may have heard of the recent omnibus simplification proposal. While our ambitions remain the same, we are trying to find a consensual and viable balance between mandatory requirements and the ease of their implementation. But allow me to focus on this region. We have been privileged to walk on the journey of business and human rights alongside our Asian partners. In 2019 to 2024, we have been working with the UNDP on supporting the development of national action plans on business and human rights in Thailand, in Malaysia, Indonesia, and Mongolia. These partnerships allowed us to support thousands of companies on human rights due diligence and to strengthen the capacity of rights holders and their representatives when seeking effective remedies. We are committed to continue working closely with the governments in the Asia-Pacific region in light of the key role they can play in creating the regulatory environment needed to hold business accountable and supporting SMEs and communities. In Thailand, the EU delegation has been cooperating closely with the Ministry of Justice on developing the draft act on the promotion of responsible business conduct. Civil society organizations remain equally indispensable in our efforts, particularly on advocating for the victims of corporate harm and holding businesses accountable for their actions. Attention is still needed to ensure an enabling environment for civil society and rights holders to speak out without reprisals. Let me reaffirm the European Union's strong commitment to continue working together and supporting civil society. Our partnerships with the UN include the project Agents of Change, Youth and Media for Responsible Business Conduct with the UNDP, unlocking the potential of young people and media actors as mobilizers of change in Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Mongolia. We also work with ILO, IOM, UN Women, UNICEF, and UNODC in Southeast Asia on the promotion of corporate responsibility and migrant workers' rights, decent work, and reduction of vulnerabilities for women and children migrants, and in the blue economy sector. Moreover, we work with the OECD on a project promoting responsible business conduct for green, digital, and resilient supply chains in Asia, focused on high-income countries. Another opportunity to work together will be offered by the 6th ASEAN-EU Policy Dialogue on Human Rights in October in Kuala Lumpur, taking place alongside the 4th ASEAN-EU Civil Society Forum, with a side event on business and human rights, building on the recent ASEAN regional dialogues. I hope this year's forum will encourage active contributions from the different sectors and provide further food for thought on how to jointly build a future where the respect of human rights and environmental protection are integral to business operations. I wish everyone fruitful discussions and interested exchanges in the coming days. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Sarah. We are also grateful for the partnership of Government of Australia, whose support has been vital not only in advancing business and human rights across Asia, but also in championing gender equality and ensuring women's voices and leadership are central to this agenda. And I would like to invite Mr. Andrew Egan, Minister, Councillor, and Deputy Head of Mission Australia, to please deliver his opening remarks. Andrew, the floor is yours.
Sawadee krap tuk tan. Good morning, distinguished colleagues, partners, and friends. It is an honour to join you today for the opening of the 7th Asia-Pacific UN Responsible Business and Human Rights Forum. I would like to start by acknowledging the expertise gathered in the room here today from business, civil society, and government. I also want to acknowledge your passion, your commitment, and your tireless efforts to advocate for human rights standards in business and to drive practical change in our region. Australia is proud to support the global business and human rights agenda. We expect all businesses operating in Australia and Australian companies operating overseas to adhere to their corporate responsibilities. We support compliance with international frameworks, including the UN Guiding Principles and the OECD guidelines, because human rights are everyone's business. In our region, Australia works closely with governments, civil society, and the private sector to translate business and human rights principles into practice. We have supported initiatives that strengthen corporate accountability, encourage responsible supply chains, and ensure that businesses are partners in advancing inclusive and sustainable development. We are committed to ensuring that gender equality, disability, and social inclusion are not an afterthought, but indispensable to upholding the business and human rights agenda. For example, under our Mekong Australia partnership, we are working together with UN Women on the We Rise Together program, which seeks to facilitate equal market access for women entrepreneurs and build capacity of public and private buyers to integrate supply diversity and gender-responsive procurement in all the countries across the Mekong region, including here in Thailand. With the interconnected nature of our economies comes the fact that our supply chains are closely woven together. So Australia is committed to strong action to ensure that our supply chains do not promote, condone, or financially support modern slavery or serious exploitation in any form. Within Australia domestically, we have our Modern Slavery Act. Now, legislative frameworks are important, but it is implementation that really matters. So our Modern Slavery Act requires large businesses and the Australian government to publish annual statements describing their actions to assess and address modern slavery in their operations and supply chains. And Australia is strengthening its focus on implementing the Act to drive change. So the Australian government has recently appointed our first anti-slavery commissioner, Mr. Chris Evans, whose responsibility is to raise awareness and support victims and survivors of slavery, as well as to assist businesses to address modern slavery risks. Internationally, we are active bilaterally, regionally, and multilaterally. For example, we co-chair with Indonesia the Bali process on people smuggling, trafficking in persons, and related transnational crime. The Bali Process Regional Support Office is located here in Bangkok. We also play an active role in the Bali Process Government and Business Forum, which works to acknowledge, act, and advance efforts to promote ethical recruitment and supply chain transparency. Australia is also the Asia-Pacific Regional Representative on Alliance 8.7, which aims to eradicate forced labour, human trafficking, and the worst forms of child labour. We also support this agenda through our regional development cooperation programs. These programs help support policy and legal responses to modern slavery, including the ASEAN Australia Counter-Trafficking Program, which is an 80 million Australian dollar 10-year investment, and Triangle in ASEAN, a $24 million program. We also ensure that we provide direct support to the essential work of civil society organisations throughout the Asia-Pacific region. Distinguished delegates and guests, complex challenges in business and human rights continue to arise. One of the most alarming includes the rapid rise of online scamming, which has fast become one of the world's largest illicit industries and has serious implications for our region. Australia is working closely with regional and international partners to share intelligence, to identify and disrupt cyber scam syndicates, and to protect scam victims. While we've made progress on this agenda, there is without doubt more work to do. Forums such as this one are critical because they provide the space for us to share experiences, confront difficult challenges, and to develop regional solutions to common problems. Human rights risks do not stop at borders, but nor do the opportunities for collaboration and innovation. By working together, we can ensure that this region remains at the forefront of responsible business practices. Australia is committed to continuing this journey alongside all of you to build more inclusive, equitable, and resilient economies and societies. And with that, I wish all of you every success over the forum and look forward to hearing the outcomes of the discussions this week. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. And we're also very grateful for the partnership of Government of Japan, who could not join us, unfortunately, today. but whose support has been instrumental in strengthening responsible business practices and promoting human rights due diligence in the region. So we would like to also acknowledge their support as co-organizers. And to close this segment, it's my honor to invite Dr. Pichaman Riofantong, the chairperson of the UN Working Group on Business and Human Rights, to deliver her opening remarks, given the working group's leadership particularly has been central in advancing the guiding principles globally, and we're delighted to have her here with us today and share her reflections. Pichaman, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction, and it is very good to see everyone here today. Now, looking around the room, I am reminded of the many rights holders who do not have the means nor the luxury to join these types of forums, to engage governments and businesses freely, and to speak without the fear of reprisals. Holding the mandate from the UN Human Rights Council to promote, disseminate, and implement the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights, I recognize my very privileged position sitting here with other esteemed speakers on this stage. From this vantage point, I want to acknowledge that true courage lies with all rights holders, including victims of corporate abuse, who often at great personal risk are calling for accountability, transparency, and action in line with the UNGPs. Human rights abuses in the context of business activities are still occurring everywhere. This is not hyperbole. Allow me to share my recent experience in Korea, where I met with workers, trade union representatives, as well as the victims and families of those harmed by human rights abuses. I met with Mr. Ko Jin-soo, head of the Sejong Hotel branch of the Korean Tourism and Leisure Industry Union, who has been staging an aerial strike for the past 200 days, over 200 days, including under conditions of severe heat, to demand corporate accountability for unfair dismissals. I met with Ms. Park Jung-hae, who alongside other workers has been subject to repeated judicial harassment for requesting dialogue with a business's parent company. And the case of weathercaster Oh Yoana, who died by suicide as a result of relentless workplace bullying and harassment. Her mother is now on a hunger strike to call for justice and for national laws to protect the labor rights of freelancers and other non-regular workers in Korea. Many others in various parts of this region have shared with the working group their stories of struggle and loss. For too many still lack access to effective remedies, and yet they persevere. They persevere in demanding justice and reminding us of the core promise of the UNGPs, that people, not profit, must be placed at the heart of business conduct. I don't want to sound naive in saying this. For many businesses, including those in this room or listening online, profit matters to the sustainment of your operations. And for governments, economic development will continue to be prioritized. But the ask here is this: remember that your policies and operations have impacts on real people. Also remember that when it comes to ensuring business and human rights, we need to work together, not against each other. Because the social contract, which needs reaffirming and rebuilding, can only stand if there is trust on all sides. Without that trust, even the strongest economic models will be built on shaky ground. And when the foundation is weak, the risks multiply. Societal conflict, reputational crises, supply chain disruptions, costly litigation, consumer boycotts, and the erosion of investor confidence. Without that trust, there will be negative impacts on corporate bottom lines. Building trust with rights holders is not only the right thing to do, it is also the smart thing to do for long-term resilience and sustainable growth. Trust cannot grow, however, when human rights defenders and whistleblowers are punished simply for speaking out. The Working Group on Business and Human Rights has condemned many times before the threats and intimidation against human rights defenders, including the increasing use of strategic litigation or lawsuits against public participation, also known as SLAPs. This is still done by certain businesses, judicial harassment designed to silence defenders in this region. The SLAP case against Kunwitun Lien Jamrun and BioThai Foundation is but one example, being emblematic of a wider shameful trend. When those who stand up for human rights are targeted, the entire system of accountability is weakened for us all. The struggle is proving even more critical in the current geopolitical climate. The Trump administration's tariffs and the rollback of measures on diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as climate action, have not only regressed standards in the US, They also risk spilling over into other countries. We already see businesses in some jurisdictions feeling that they have to weaken their commitments to human rights as a result. But this retreat is premature and very ill-advised. The world does not need less commitment to human rights, but more. At the same time, I would, of course, be remiss not to recognize the hard-won progress made in this region. We see governments adopting business and human rights related laws, national action plans, and taking steps to create a rights respecting environment. Businesses too are implementing human rights due diligence in their operations and along their value chains. These are important developments that show how positive momentum is possible when political will, business leadership, and social solidarity align. As the global economy's center of gravity shifts to the Asia-Pacific, regional leadership through crisis is urgently needed. With its complex value chains, this region has the opportunity to set new norms and act on existing standards of responsible business conduct. As citizens of this region, we must ensure greater accountability, not impunity, by centering the voices of those at risk of abuse. Indigenous peoples, women and LGBTQI+ persons, migrant workers, persons with disabilities, and children, among other groups. Their lived realities must shape how the UNGPs are implemented, and the UNGPs must guide how we all work together. Anything worth pursuing has never been easily achieved. Progress in human rights, in dignity, and in justice is often the result of tireless struggle. But this pursuit should not come at the expense of the very people whose rights we are seeking to uphold. Enough lives have been lost and enough tears have been shed. This forum must be a catalyst for change. So to all of you in this room today and watching online, please continue to be the change makers, the business and human rights champions that we need. By keeping rights holders at the center of your efforts, you will not only be building more just and sustainable economies, you will also be honoring the lives, the sacrifices, and the hopes of the many generations who have refused to give up on justice or on human dignity. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pichamon. And I think with that, we will close this segment. And I would like to invite back my colleague Renita for a security briefing here.
Thank you, Harpreet. Distinguished guests, speakers, and participants, the forum organizers are committed to enabling a forum in which everyone can participate in an inclusive, respectful, healthy, and safe environment and is treated with fairness and dignity. This event follows the UN Code of Conduct for Events, and you can find the details on the forum website. UN events are also guided by the highest ethical and professional standards, and all participants are expected to act with integrity, respect, and dignity towards all other participants. The UN has a zero-tolerance policy for harassment, including sexual harassment, and is committed to addressing complaints promptly. Acts of intimidation or reprisals against participants or those cooperating with the UN on human rights are unacceptable. To report any such instances during the forum, please note the contact details of the forum organizers up here on the screen. The email address is unrbhrforum@undp.org. And to report cases to the UN Human Rights System, please contact OHCHR-reprisals@un.org. The forum prioritizes safeguarding children and vulnerable individuals. And the safeguarding focal point can be contacted during or after the event by notifying the registration staff or through the contact details you see here on the screen. And you will, of course, find all of these details on the frequently asked questions and logistics page on the forum website. Finally, we encourage all participants to actively engage, share openly, and listen respectfully. This is a diverse, multicultural, and multi-stakeholder forum, and all of your contributions are vital to making this consultation a success and to advance business and human rights in the region. With that, may I now request everyone to please stand and face the back of the room? Is that correct? For a group photo, please. and we'll be guided by the photographers, and we may have to cluster together.
So just turn around, look at the camera. I think the camera is somewhere on that side. But once that's done, we will also take a group photo at the stage. So please, if you could join us at the stage in about 5 minutes. I don't see the... All right. Should I say no? Yeah. And people can also move towards the center of the room. I think the photographers are saying they're going to be able to take the shot here. And if you could please start moving towards the stage, we would like to take a group photo with all of you here at the stage. It'll take us 2 minutes if you will move very, very fast before we move on to the other sessions.
No, I guess we're starting here and then maybe.
Just stand here.
Yes, I didn't.
We will have to make a couple of rows. So people in the front, if you could please maybe sit down, adjust heights. And some of you can also join at the back of the stage just to kind of get the height.
Hey. Sorry.
ไม่มีใครเห็นหรอกแอบ
ยืนตรงนี้นะ
There's some still people at the back. If you want to come in for the group photo, this is the last 30 seconds to move here towards the stage.
Would I request everyone to look towards this lens, please? One last shot, big smiles, please, big smiles. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.